There is a moment, and if you have ever been in a high-stakes conversation, you know this moment, even if you have no language for it, where the person across from you already has the answer. You haven't finished speaking. You may not have said anything overtly false, but something has already arrived. Something shifted in the quality of the silence before your sentence completed itself. And in that silence, before you were done, they already knew. This is not instinct in the soft, intuitive sense people use when they want to sound perceptive without committing to precision. This is a physiological process, a cascade of behavioral signals transmitted by your body's nervous system, signals it did not ask your permission to send. It's received and processed by a brain that has been pattern-matching human deception for as long as social interaction has existed. The knowing happens before the conclusion is consciously formed. By the time it surfaces as certainty, the data has already been collected. Your sentence was still in the air. The verdict was already in. What most people understand about deception detection is surface level at best, and wrong at worst. The popular version, the crossed arms, the averted gaze, the hand covering the mouth, is a mythology. It's a simplified, broadly circulated set of signals that trained observers largely ignore because they are too well known to be reliable. People who know they're being watched for these signals suppress them. And the suppression itself creates a different set of signals that are, in many ways, more revealing than the original tells would have been. When you try to manage your deception presentation, you add a layer of cognitive load to an already taxed system. And that load shows up in behavior in ways that are considerably harder to fake your way around. The real mechanics of deception detection begins somewhere most people don't think to look: in timing. Every human brain operates on a processing rhythm. When you speak truthfully, the relationship between thought, emotion, and language is relatively fluid. The story you are telling matches the memory or belief it is drawn from, and the delivery of that story flows with a natural rhythm that is specific to you, your baseline cadence, your default pace, your characteristic relationship between thinking and speaking. When you are constructing rather than retrieving, when the story you are telling is being built rather than recalled, that relationship breaks down. Not always dramatically, not always visibly, but the timing changes. Kikika-ness. There is a fractional latency between the question and the answer. Micropause that exists, not because you are choosing your words carefully, but because you are choosing your story. To a trained observer, that pause, measured not in seconds, but in fractions of seconds, is one of the most reliable signals in the entire behavioral deception repertoire. Then there is the body. The human nervous system has two primary modes that are relevant here: the parasympathetic state, which governs rest, repair, and equilibrium, and the sympathetic state, which governs threat, response, arousal, and survival activation. When you lie in a situation where the stakes are meaningful to you, your nervous system registers that situation as a threat. Not metaphorically, physiologically. The amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, activates. Stress hormones enter the bloodstream. The body shifts into a state of heightened alertness that is detectable in dozens of ways, most of them below the threshold of your conscious management. Blood flow redirects. Micro-sweat activates on the palms, the upper lip, the forehead. Pupil dilation increases. The voice shifts, sometimes in pitch, sometimes in pace, sometimes in a subtle quality of tension that is not quite identifiable but is nonetheless perceived by the listener at a level beneath conscious analysis. You cannot override a sympathetic nervous system response through willpower alone. The body keeps a different ledger than the mind, and it does not falsify its entries to protect your performance. Beyond timing and physiology, there is a third layer that receives far less attention than it deserves: narrative structure. Acuteful accounts and constructed accounts have different architectures, When a person is recalling something that actually happened, the account contains texture, peripheral details, and sensory fragments. It's the kind of incidental information that exists in genuine memory, because memory does not record only what was important, it records what was present. Constructed accounts, by contrast, tend toward efficiency. They include what is necessary to establish plausibility and exclude the rest. Dates that exist serve the story, okay? There are no details that exist purely because they happen to be there. This is a structural signal, okay? It is not foolproof. Practiced deceivers develop the habit of inserting false peripheral detail, but under pressuring, under the cognitive load of managing a real-time deception, narrative structure tends to reveal itself, okay? The story becomes too clean, too purposeful. It's precisely organized around the outcome it is designed to produce. There is also the phenomenon of emotional timing, the relationship between the content of what is being said and the emotional expression that accompanies it. In genuine experience, emotion and language emerge together. The feeling and the words for it arise from the same source. In constructed accounts, they are often slightly out of phase. The emotion arrives after the statement rather than with it, as if it was an addition, a layer of plausibility applied to a frame that was built first and furnished second. Behavioral analysts refer to this as affect lag, the half-second delay between a statement and its accompanying emotional expression that signals the emotion was added rather than felt. It is subtle, it is real. And it is one of the signals most consistently overlooked by untrained observers because it requires attention to temporal sequence rather than content. Now consider what happens in the other direction, in the detection of deception directed at you. Most people process social information primarily through content. They listen to what is being said and evaluate it at the level of logic and plausibility. Does this story make sense? Does it align with what I know? Is there a reason to doubt this person? This is a rational framework applied to a fundamentally pre-rational process. By the time your conscious mind is evaluating the content of what someone is telling you, your nervous system has already been processing the behavioral signal for seconds. It's the discomfort you feel before you can name a reason for it. It's the sense that something is slightly wrong even though the words are right. The inexplicable resistance to a story that is logically coherent. These are not irrational responses. They are the output of a system that is operating faster and at a lower level than your conscious reasoning, a system that has already flagged the timing anomaly, registered the affect lag, noticed the narrative efficiency, and is surfacing its conclusion as a feeling while your conscious mind is still parsing sentences. The trained observer simply closes the gap between that feeling and its source. Atana. They learn to trace the sensation back to the signal, to identify what specifically triggered the response, rather than experiencing it as undifferentiated intuition. And once that skill is developed, conversations become a fundamentally different kind of experience. Queer. The content layer does not disappear. It still matters. DAR is now a second channel. A channel that carries behavioral data in real time, that updates continuously as the conversation unfolds, and that produces information about what is actually happening in the room that the content layer alone is structurally incapable of delivering. Understanding this changes your relationship to your own deceptions as much as it changes your relationship to the deceptions of others. Because if these signals transmit involuntarily, if the timing, the physiology, the narrative structure, the effect lag are all operating beneath the level of your conscious control, then the question is not whether you can stop transmitting them. You cannot. The question is what you understand about the field they operate in, what you know about who is receiving them, and with what level of precision. Tase. And what it means to move through social environments with that awareness, rather than without it. There is a particular kind of sobriety that comes with this knowledge, not paranoia, not the hypervigilance of someone who trusts no one, something quieter and more structural than that, an understanding that every conversation carries two simultaneous transmissions, the content, which is managed, and the behavioral signal, which is not. That the people who have learned to read the second transmission are operating in a fundamentally different informational environment than those who haven't. That you have been in rooms with those people without knowing it. That you may be in those rooms now. And perhaps most importantly, that this capacity is not fixed. It is not a gift distributed unevenly at birth to a small number of unusually perceptive people. It is a skill. It has a structure. It can be studied, practiced, and developed to a level of precision that most people never approach, not because most people lack the capacity, but because most people were never told the skill existed. They already knew you were lying before you finished the sentence. The question this video leaves you with is not whether that is disturbing. The question is what you intend to do with the understanding that it is also learnable. That the same process that reads you can be understood, can be mapped, can, with enough deliberate attention, become the lens through which you begin to read the room back.